Hi, and welcome to Bible Walkthrough. I'm Adam Ayers.
Wes Warner.
And we have a hot one for you this time. This one is a real jalapeno. This one will light your candle and ours. So, for your last listening pleasure here on Bible Walkthrough, Ephesians 5. Wives, be subject to your husbands out of reverence for Christ.
You like that one.
We're going to get to that in a moment on Bible Walkthrough. So this is a passage that's been worked over from all angles. It's one of the most controversial statements of Paul, although he has many. And it has been pushed down and rejected outright by some. It's been qualified by others. It's been championed by others. And much of the controversy around this stems from verse 21, where Paul says, "Be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ." And then the next line, "Wives, be subject to your husbands as you are to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, just as Christ is the head of the church, the body of which he is the Savior. Just as the church is subject to Christ, so also wives ought to be in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, in order to make her holy by cleansing her with the washing of water by the word, so as to present the church to himself in splendor, without a spot or wrinkle or anything of the kind. Yes, so that she may be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as they do their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself." That's a pretty categorical and strong statement. So I'm going to ask you to comment on it first, Wes, because I'd rather for you to be in hot water before I am.
So I've heard this passage before, and it has irked me. And I don't know, I've tried it out in my marriage, and it's just, I don't know. The whole idea that you are going to love your wife the way that Christ loved the church. And then I've heard people say that means basically you follow your wife around, and whatever she needs, you do it for her. You ask her if she needs a foot rub, and if she says jump, you jump for her. And that's what love looks like, is to do whatever that person asks of you to do. And I've even heard that applied to anybody. Like, no matter what's asked of you, you should always give it, because that's what love looks like. And you need to submit to everybody that you come upon. And I think that sounds almost like appealing in a sense, because you want to be total love. But when you apply that to Jesus, I don't see how those images match up. Jesus is the expression of love. And I can't ever imagine Jesus walking around, going up to everybody he meets and saying, "Oh my goodness, what can I do for you today? Can I wash your feet for you? And can I give you a back rub?" And he didn't do that to every single person he met. In fact, the opposite. Like, he went to, when he did his thing of washing the disciples' feet, he got down on the knees, and Peter was like, "No, please don't wash my feet." And Jesus told him, "Hey, if you don't let me wash your feet, you don't got anything to do with me." Yeah. So it wasn't even a matter of Jesus giving Peter what he wanted and, "Let me wash your feet for you because that's what you want." No, it was a matter of, "I'm going to wash your feet for you, and you're still in a place of submission. You're still submitting to me while I'm serving you and giving you what you really need." Mm-hmm. That's the kind of service and the kind of leadership Jesus exhibited. And that's what I hear when I read this, when it says, "Love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself to her to sanctify her with the cleansing by the washing of the water of the word." He gave his life for them, even if they didn't want that to happen. Even if the church didn't want him to die, he still did it. And that's how they needed to be served. He laid his life down for them. So it's a matter of knowing and hearing from God what that person needs and giving it to them and serving them with it. Giving them what God says they need. More than it is of just listening to every little thing that's on their wish list and doing it for them.
Yeah, we don't find that anywhere in Jesus' ministry. In fact, when they demand bread, he refuses. People who expect to follow him and they make the request, he repudiates. When they want teaching, he feeds them. When they want food, he teaches them. Mm-hmm. He's very contrary in many ways. So
he does heal everybody that comes to him.
We'll have to deal with that on a second time. Yeah. He heals people who don't come to him.
Yeah.
But very few people come to him for healing. He normally goes to them, which is interesting. So we don't find a submissive or servile Jesus. We find a servant Jesus, but not a servile Jesus. The more than that, the thing that sticks out to me, really in the controversy of the Ephesians 5 passage, is this line in 21 that says, "Be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ." And many who have difficulty with the wives submitting to the husbands will say this means that the wife and the husband are mutually submissive to each other. And yet that's a stretch for this introduction of this passage, because Paul goes on to say that slaves are supposed to submit to their masters and that children are supposed to submit to their parents. So we have here in this section 3 examples that would seem to unpack Paul's statement, submit to one another's. Wives, submit to your husbands. Children, submit to your parents. Slaves, submit to your masters. 3 categories of expression of the same dictum. Everybody has somebody that they have to submit to.
Exactly.
And Paul's saying, all of you who have different roles, you have someone to submit to. Make sure that you fulfill that submission out of reverence for Christ, really out of fear of Christ. It's just the wives being subject to their husband is one avenue. If we say that it's all mutual, then masters are supposed to submit to their slaves, and parents are supposed to submit to their children also, which makes the reading impossible.
It's like, give me candy, Mom. Okay.
Yeah.
All day long.
And that certainly would
ridiculous.
Not be either righteous or healthy.
No.
I think the problem,
Goodness gracious.
from an anthropological perspective, the problem is that we in modern Western culture have a false association of authority with value.
Mm-hmm.
That somehow we think that if someone has greater authority, they have greater value. And the person who doesn't have authority, does not have value, is somehow devalued if someone else has authority over them. But in what Paul talks about with children and parents, that's not the case. A parent doesn't have more value than a child. We would say it's the reverse, that the child is more valued than the parent. Mm-hmm. So it's really an aversion that we have as Westerners because we have imagined an egalitarian society in which authority is naturally seen as oppressive or devaluing because it's authoritative. And that would be very problematic for Trinitarians, because Trinitarians hold that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are equal, and yet the Son is under the authority of the Father, which would make a disparity of authority. If it were true that being under someone's authority devalues you, then the Son is naturally devalued by the Father. But I don't think the Father is the man keeping the Son down.
Right.
And he's not making him less than. It's just simply that he's under authority. I think this would call us to recast our idea of value over against authority.
Yeah, because when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he was saying, do I really want to do this, God? Is there any way I can do this that's not going to lead me to the cross? If Jesus had said, I'm not going to do what you say, his value's gone.
Yeah.
The very act of submitting to the Father and going that pathway all the way to death is what makes Jesus gain that exalted position.
Yes.
He is the name above all names because he submits to the Father, because he is one with his Father. Submittance increases his value and places him where he should be. I don't know if you can say increases, but you know what I mean. Like it declares his value.
Yeah, it expresses greater glory.
It expresses greater glory. That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, it makes him higher value, which is really strange. And there is a clear contrast between Jesus' will and the Father's will. They are not the same will, and Jesus makes it very clear, this is not my will, it is your will, and I submit that. Other places he says, I do only those things which the Father tells me. That would feel like it would appear to be a devalued position if you do only what someone else tells you, if you do always what someone tells you. But that is not the case, and that's our ideal of submission. Like you say, that, and it ultimately is that the Son is more honored by that, has great value. Yeah. The baby, though completely submitted to a mom, the mom would say, I would die for that baby, though the mom has complete authority and the baby has no authority. But the mom would die for the baby. Which one has more value? The baby, although the baby has no authority. So we need to disambiguate that idea of authority and value, I think.
Mm-hmm. And we need to remember that no matter what place we find ourselves in, there's going to be some kind of authority over us.
Yes.
And our value increases when we submit to that authority.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're a child submitting to a parent, the obedient child is the one who has the most value. Whether it's the wife submitting to the husband, mm-hmm. it's the wife who respects and honors her husband that's going to have the most value, be most prized. And same with slaves. We don't really have too many slaves mm-hmm. around here, but mm-hmm. the best, most hardworking, obedient slave is the one with the highest value. So look for that place you can demonstrate that obedience and that honor, because that is what will express the glory of God in you and cause you to show off the value that God has for you.
A long and complex explanation of a very short and simple text.
Mm-hmm.
The text is pretty accessible. I think we are the ones who make it complex. Yeah. Have the humility to be honored. We'll see you next time and next text on Bible Walkthrough. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.